Good morning, everyone. We'll call this morning's meeting to order for Tuesday, August 3rd. And our first item is the approval of the agenda, and there's been a request to have number 8 removed from this morning's agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the withdrawal of that item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Gross. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard? That's not on the agenda. Anyone online, Steve?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, we will move into the approval of the bills and vouchers.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebbinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Approval of minutes from July 20th.
Move to approve minutes?
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Cayley, second by Commissioner Ebbinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. We have an employee recognition. All by yourself today, the only one today. I was thinking maybe we should have Commissioner Gross give this. Apparently there's some little.
He's got stories.
All right. Terry Bush. Terry, this is presented to you in grateful recognition for 15 years of dedicated and outstanding service for Clay County. Thank you.
Yes.
Jamie, you're going to,
I am.
okay, you want to use
Are you
that?
going to make me cry? Is it on?
Yes, it's on.
Good morning. Well, I'm honored to recognize Terry after 15 years with public health. Terry came to Clay County with public health experience and joined the family health team. And she works tirelessly. Her goal is always to connect our most vulnerable families with the community resources available to them, with the ultimate goal of helping them to achieve health and self-sufficiency. And I also wanted to highlight over the last 3-4 years, Terry has been a tuberculosis case manager. And so she's worked 7 days a week in order to make sure that our infectious TB cases are medicated and treated. And so that's been a big asset to our agency. And then also she decided she was going to train in our Min Choices program. So she's a certified Min Choicer assessor. And then she was endlessly a part of our team during the COVID actions as well. So.
I know you're not on the agenda, but while I have the advantage of having you, are you having a big vaccine thing tomorrow? Is that coming up?
Thursday,
Thursday?
isn't it?
We do, actually. I've been on vacation, so I'm not real sure
Okay.
the dates of those.
Well, I thought this would be an excellent opportunity to let the public know when that is.
And I apologize because
And I
don't have
apologize
those dates.
for this short notice, but
But we are continuing to go to the schools. So Cheryl Sapp and some of the nurses with her have clinics scheduled this week. And again, I apologize for not having the actual date at the Family Service
I
Center.
know there's a clinic at the Family Service Center on Thursday
yes, that's the one I'm reading.
from 9 to 1.
No, noon to 12:30 is in it.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, Frank, would you like to give a report?
On your website, there says there's a vaccination clinic on Thursday from 12 to 4:30 is what it says.
Thank you very
And
much.
that's
Thank you.
for
As
all-
you can tell, Jamie and I are not in charge of the schedule.
And that-
We oversee
Well,
Cheryl
I'm
and
sorry
Liz.
for putting you on the spot. I just thought it would be an excellent opportunity to get the word out here that we have another one on Thursday. And that is for ages 12 and up?
Yes.
Yep.
Correct. And yes, check the website, and I think it's also on our Public Health Facebook page as well.
All right, very good.
And I can tell you that I did speak with Cheryl yesterday. She's working to bring in more Moderna vaccine. She has Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. So the goal is to have all opportunities for vaccine for the 12 and up.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like we have our highway engineers remote today, huh? All right, we'll go to our 8:35 item. That's an update on North Broadway Bridge. We have Dave is with us online. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning.
Justin
Can you
as
hear
well.
us?
Yeah, I think, say something again, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear you.
Can you hear us? All right. Justin and I are at Incident Command Training today. It's an ICS 300 level course, so there was almost no other options. So it's a 3-day deal that we're taking in, along with a couple of our deputies from the Sheriff's Department and a couple from the GIS Department. But anyway, we'll give a little update on the North Broadway Bridge. We've been working on this since February 11th of 2021, when the bridge was closed. We were already into a slope stability project, if you remember, and there were some parameters and some survey, things that we were doing. And once those movements increased to a level, there was some parameters on what to do, and I guess it's been moving to a point where it exceeded the threshold of leaving it open. So the bridge was closed. We've been meeting probably monthly or so with the city of Fargo, who is the other owner of the bridge, and we developed additional tasks that were amended to the consulting contract with SRF. One of those additional tasks was to check out the traffic impacts, as they mostly involved the city of Fargo with the closure. I believe those tasks have been completed. There's also additional geotechnical analysis, as the road on the North Dakota side has a lot more movement, the roadway itself, and it's sliding into the river. And I believe there's some a lot more geotechnical work on their end for that. The third part of the additional change of the scope would be to gather public feedback with an online survey. We'll go into a little bit more detail on that. And then the last thing then would be to gather all this information and provide a layout and cost estimates for either full reconstruction of a new bridge or a closure. And then the new reconstruction would include either putting it back to the same elevation as today, or to have it to a height where it would remain open at the 37-foot flood stage. So that's kind of the what we've been up to. It's taken a little longer than I thought, I guess, to get some of the contracts and the amendments passed between both entities, but I believe we're moving forward now. We also been working with City of Fargo, and we put together some preliminary public input questions, and I think there might be attached to a packet that was given to you this morning. If there's any additional questions or tweaks on those questions that you'd like to see, please let me know. This is kind of a second iteration. I made some comments to it. I did get some additional information today from the City of Moorhead engineering staff. Tom Trowbridge is sitting next to me this morning, and he had a couple of possible changes or inputs to the questions as well. I believe we're going to try to get this survey out electronically and via mail, and I've been working with our GS department on putting together kind of a range on how far from the bridge we want to try to capture people. So there again, once I get that dialed in, I'll maybe run that by our highway committee just to make sure that they're comfortable with that we're getting as far from the bridge as we can, I guess, to capture as many public input responses as we can. Other than that, Justin, is there anything else that I missed or that we should add?
We still are surveying it weekly, and we send our survey points to SRF just to make sure that we're still on the threshold of being closed and that there isn't any additional safety concerns there.
Mr. Chair, is there any other questions that you have or any other information that you'd like to hear?
Did you mention, did you mention the timeline for when that survey would go out?
I checked in with the city of Fargo, and our best guess is we're thinking like mid-August or so. So probably within the next couple of weeks.
Any other questions? Well, I'm sure there will be a lot of interest in that from those folks up in the northern part of the Moorhead.
Right. I know that there's definitely been interest. I've been hearing from some of the other commissioners, they've been getting questions and calls like, what are we doing? What do we plan on doing? One last thing I did want to add, Mr. Chair, is you see in the blue, the sheet there with the blue PowerPoint there, it looks like there's potential for a meeting probably like in mid-October or so between all governing boards. So if we have all the information put together, I guess it's looking like at some point we'll need to get together as a bigger group and have some discussions. So
Very good. There's nothing else. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Justin.
all right, thank you.
Yep. All right. Request to purchase web-based soils module. Nancy Gunderson, County Assessor. Good morning, Nancy.
Since about 1980, we have been using CERs, which are crop equivalency ratings that were supplied by the University of Minnesota, who calculated them and supported them. So we've been using that to value our tillable acres for real estate tax purposes. We have been thinking about moving to the next level of valuing land, which is using CPI, which is a crop productivity index. That is maintained and developed by the USDA. Because our CERs are no longer maintained by the university, we feel that it would be a good opportunity for our taxpayers to be able to go out and visualize and see the indexing that's supplied by the USDA and to be a checks and balance against what we're using to value them. So Pro West gave me a demo 2 times of this soils module in May. And at the latter part of May, I received a quote for the project. The cost to purchase this, which would be then another layer on our GIS mapping, is $12,071.44. That would be for the layer itself, as well as a reporting process to use. There's also a $500 annual fee in order to maintain it annually. I initially put this into my 2022 budget, but I had a conversation with Kimberly Savageau, our Clay County recorder. She has a technology fund, which she gets through recording documents, and she reviewed my project, and she felt that it would meet criteria to spend those funds. So I'm asking if we could go ahead and have your approval to purchase this particular module to use.
Dave, you serve on that technology. Has that group met?
Yes, we met. There is funds available for within the technology group.
So for 2022, that had not all been previously budgeted then? So there were
21.
There-
The 2021 technology funds or 2022?
2022.
It would be out of her $21.
Would be,
Right.
okay.
Yes, and she does have sufficient funds.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nancy, I really appreciate the fact that we're trying to make sure we're using the most up-to-date equipment to analyze. So I really do appreciate you looking at that, and also appreciate you collaborating with another department, because it really all serves the same people once it's said and done. The only piece I have on it, at some point, I have no problem with this, but at some point I would like to have growers' feedback, just on you know, they work a lot with the USDA and so understand what these different ratios are. But I think having an avenue for producers to be able to give feedback on what they feel like they're seeing with other equipment or ratings or I think would be a positive avenue. So I'm not sure if it's worth having a public hearing on it or just having a little news announcement on our county webpage that we would like to hear back from growers, because I think that is important.
Right. Commissioner Baer, do you have?
So I'll make a motion that this purchase be approved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ebinger, second by Commissioner Gross, and discussion, and I think Commissioner Mojo's comments deserve a little bit of response here too. I do think it's a good idea to keep them informed as to what's going on. I don't know how this new technology might impact or adjust the way values are created, and I think we went through a period of time not too long ago where we had another change somewhere that obviously created some somewhat controversy in valuing, and I certainly want to avoid having that happen again. So maybe some sort of a period of time where we can. We have an awful lot of ag people in this county, so I don't know how we'd get to everybody, but.
Well, maybe just to follow up on that, I see Kevin Kassenberg is here, and we were at the local work group with the USDA and SWCD, and even the watershed was represented, and we did talk about how do you reach all the producers in the county, and I think there is a Rolodex somewhere of all of them, but I think there is a database somewhere that we can access to just forward the information. Because I agree, we were all at those meetings when the pendulum swung a little bit and ag land was weighted a little heavier, and so I'm certainly hopeful that this will help with the consistency of how we're valuing things, and I'm certainly not expecting a huge swing for that weight again, but just to make sure people have an avenue is important.
Yes, Commissioner Kaylee.
Out of curiosity, has there been some sampling done to compare what values would have been with the old system versus this new system?
No, I have not done anything like that. And I'm sure it'll take us roughly 5 years to accomplish, because we would probably work through it as we do our quintile work. So we would first establish it and then apply it. So I would say it's a time out, before it would actually be impacted. But to get good feedback back from our taxpayers, I think would be key. Yeah.
Well, I certainly like that the point of this is for our citizens to be able to look and see and verify on that layer on the map what their valuation should be and check that. So I appreciate that.
So is this another tool to use in valuing besides just comparable sales?
Well, we have to rate the tillable land.
Okay.
And so that's the factor that would be applied. And then when our sales come in, then we'd see if we're within range or are we too high, too low, and that's the factor also that gets taken into.
Right. I remember the map that you
Yep.
show us that each mile, has its own little rating, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just it seems like our agricultural financing people, and I do believe farmers are more in tune and with this new rating than a CER. But it's just something that's supported, I guess, is the biggest concern that it is.
Well, I see this as a possible benefit for the ag producer too, to have additional information to have available to them. I know if you mentioned that it's going to take up to 5 years to roll out, I would hope as you move forward, the commission can be advised if you're seeing potential major changes in advance of tax statements going out that would implement it. so that we can, that board can have the discussion at that time with a little bit of advanced knowledge. So, all right. Okay, so any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, sir.
And tell Kimberly, thank you for taking that out of her fund.
Thank you.
All right, Justin. Seems like you might as well just have a seat here every week here.
Not something I enjoy doing.
Good morning. Well, I know, but it needs to be done. Isn't it?
Yes. So I am here requesting to fill 2 full-time vacancies. We had 2 individuals that'll be leaving us. The first one, I think, is done August 8th. The next one gave us a little bit more notice, is done August 26th. So looking to fill those 2 positions. They are within our budget for the year, as well as part of our DOC staffing plan.
All right. Commissioner Kaylee.
I don't want you to feel bad. It seems like any time that there's an administrative change, there's a bunch of staff turnover, and I don't care what industry you're in. So while it does seem like you've been coming here frequently, this is sort of an expected thing. Unpleasant, but expected, so.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think just the length of time some of these employees have been with us, I think the decision was, do I stick this out as a lifelong career type thing, or do I move on to do something else? And I think a few of them are just choosing to move on to do other things.
Yeah.
Commissioner Ebinger.
Just kind of proactive. I mean, I think the environment you've got over there, from everything I hear, is good. Is there any ability to assess applicants to see if they're going to be people you can retain, or are there exit interviews where maybe you're identifying things that could be adjusted to make it more desirable, or is this simply the fact, I know it's a high-pressure job and some people can handle it and some can't? What's your take on that?
So it's a little hard to kind of review candidates and see what their long-term career paths are as far as this. A lot of individuals use this job as a stepping stone into patrol work, and that's always been the avenue. They make for great officers, but recently we've been hiring quite a few individuals that really have no plans to move into the patrol side of things, and never really went to school for criminal justice. And so our hope is with some of those hires that they enjoy the job and will stick it out longer term. We did assess some things. One of the things we heard with some of the staff leaving is just, as you get older, the rotating shift work is just not conducive, and just the lack of kind of time off. So we did make a scheduling change, and starting next week, we're moving to a 12-hour workday schedule that gives staff a few more days off in a pay period. And so that was something we heard from the staff that were still here, that we're very interested in moving to that. So we think and hope that will keep people interested in the position. It's something we're going to continue to reassess, as most of our staff when I started in corrections, we were on a 12-hour schedule, but that changed. Most of our staff have never done a 12-hour schedule, so we're going to continue to assess that and see whether they are actually liking it, and if they're not, we'll make some schedule changes.
Thank you.
Well, Justin, you're not alone in having these difficulties. Our regional juvenile detention center and staffing there is very similar to yours, and it does deal with corrections. And I agree with you that for a lot of folks in the past, it has been a stepping stone type of a deal for them to get in the door, or to get some experience and move on to different types of law enforcement. But the times as they are today, things have changed in your field, and we need to watch and figure out ways to enhance the ability to keep people here and in that important field that we have. So I echo Commissioner Cayley, keep that chin up. It's not you, it's the, it's the times that we're in, and there's, what's interesting, there's economically in this area, there's been an awful lot of new opportunities for people with less than four-year degree to get very good paying jobs now too. So there, you also have to take that into consideration, that there might be people leaving for that reason as well. So, but we need to get these positions filled for them. So,
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our 855 item, approval of resolution 2021-28 for City of Glyndon to purchase tax forfeited property. We have the mayor is here. Yeah, okay. Mayor Tollefson, do you want to? We do have a little bit of background here. Anything that you, any question, do you have anything you want to add to what you have for us here? Do we have any questions amongst the board?
Is this the piece of property we just disapproved the tax?
Yes, it is.
Payments on, okay.
The city would like to purchase it and clean it up and turn it into a piece of property for economic development.
Has the time expired for the previous owner? Isn't there a time involved where the previous owner can also?
The property right now is actually in the state of Minnesota owns.
Okay.
And it's in the Stockwood development, and it's just one of those pieces that we want to clean up and get sold.
I think it's a good plan to make a motion to approve.
Second motion.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gross, second by Commissioner Mojo. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
We have an annual budget presentation by our Planning and Zoning, Matt Jacobson. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So looking at the 2022 budget for Planning and Zoning, not too much change when you consider the $20,000 that was approved for this year's budget for our comprehensive planning effort. If you were to factor that in, looking at about a 6 3/4 reduction in a budget from this year to next year. And if you were to not factor in that 20 grand, it'd be about a 2% reduction in our budget, just kind of looking at cleaning up some line items that we haven't really used and I don't see us using in the future, at least in the next probably 5 years or so. One of our revenues seem to be holding pretty steady. One thing I might note is that with our state riparian aid, I have a sense that this might be the last year for that. And so we might not be seeing any more of that. So, and I think we have about $800,000 in the bank to use for any litigation that might come up associated with the riparian buffer law. Any questions for me at all?
Questions?
Maybe a follow-up. There are several new people in the room that maybe don't know the historical
Sure.
story on the riparian aid. Could you just briefly talk a little bit about what that was allocated for originally?
So it was originally allocated, we received about $160,000 every year from the state to basically implement the buffer law. And some of that would go to the SWCD, which was kind of charged with implementing it and make sure that those buffers were put into place. And then the additional funding that we have, I think we were mainly using in case any litigation were to come up with the buffers in Clay County. And fortunately, we've had really great adoption rates throughout the county. I think we're pushing 98% plus adoption. So it's been a pretty good process as far as Clay County has gone. So,
Well, I think that's a credit to the SWCD.
Exactly.
I think
Yep.
There's always been a very good, and watershed, I think
Yep.
there's been a very good communications all the time. Hats off to Kevin and that group for that, and his group for that. But there's some counties that can't say the same for.
Yep.
Going on here in Clay County, so.
yeah, no, they have a great
So,
working.
so this riparian and the buffer deal, that's all started was this under Governor Walz? So it's been like.
Governor Dayton.
Governor Dayton,
Yeah, Dayton,
yep,
Dayton started it.
in 2015.
2015,
Yep.
yeah. So that's
Yep.
just a timeline probably for our new commissioners.
Yeah,
when
and-
this started. But
Yeah, and the majority of implementation of that has happened between 2017 and 2019.
And this board had the opportunity to declare who they wanted to help implement that, if it be Bowser or local entities. And seeing that we did have an allocation of funds that we didn't end up having to use for litigation, I think is a testament to making sure that local boards have the opportunity to work locally with landowners. I'm not necessarily sure that that would have been the case if we would have handed it to a state agency. So I agree with Commissioner Campbell, the SWCD and our watersheds and your department really work to work with our landowners, so thank you.
Yep. And I think one of the things, and maybe Kevin can speak to this a little more, but giving some flexibility and allowing landowners to, or producers to install alternative practices as opposed to buffers, if they could prove that the alternative practice makes more sense for their operation, and if it has the same effect in I guess, benefiting water quality. That's given that flexibility, and I think that's been a good thing too.
One other question.
yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Changing a little bit over to your salary line item, can you speak a little bit about how the addition of the staff in your department has helped to follow up on some of the conditions the planning and the Board of Adjustment put on these permits? Are we able to reach out and follow up on what those are?
So I will say really want to thank this board for approving that new position, because it's made such a difference in our ability to be out and about in the county and work with folks. And then I think it was last year, the approval of a vehicle purchase, I think, has really made a huge difference in our ability to get out. If someone has issues that they're seeing, as opposed to trying to, check a car out from the fleet, and that could, timing always doesn't work out, where we might not get one for a couple days. We're able to just go out right away, and it's really nice to have that, the planning technician position. It's made a big difference, I think, in how we're able to inspect building permits more consistently. And one thing we're looking to implement probably this fall or early next spring is we have developed a gravel pit inspection application that will allow us to consistently and fairly go through all the gravel pits in the county and inspect them and make sure that they're abiding by all the conditions on their permits. And we're hoping that to use that kind of as a model for some of the other permits that we issue that would require inspections too.
Good, thank you.
I just want to go back to, at the very start, you mentioned about the riparian aid. It's a significant dollar amount. And you said that might go away, and so have you been able to incorporate that into your normal budget? I mean, because when I look here, your expenses are 363,000 versus your revenues of 214. And if that line item were to go away, you'd have revenues, I mean, there'd be that much more difference. So have you been allowed to use those dollars for other purposes other than just legal?
No, not at this time, no, and that's something that maybe we could explore in the future, but no, I haven't.
They're banked, all of them?
Yep.
So the point being, if, you know, if that's bank money that's reserved for something else, I wonder if it's even appropriate to have that as an income line item for him if it isn't eligible to be used for expenses.
Correct.
I guess that's where I'm going with this, so we can always make sure, you know, because it gives the impression with this, with what you have here, that $160,000 is offsetting your expenses.
And
and reducing the levy amount for your department.
Yeah.
And I caution us in doing that. And if we're restricted with those funds, they shouldn't be allowed to be part of your.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, you know, so I think, Steve, I don't know what we might have to do, because technically, you know, according to this, we'd be basing the levy, his department's levy, the difference between revenues and expenditures, but we're not including having to transfer out that 160,000.
Mr. Chair, we do in 01-125, 620, 6271, we do provide a portion of those funds to the watershed, who does manage a portion of their riparian aid.
Yep.
I think that's some money in, some money out from that standpoint, but we can talk with Lori.
Which, is that on this page?
Yep, that's the riparian protection, correct, Matt, right in the bottom, the funding, the 53.
Oh, 53. Yeah, but it should be 160.
Well, no,
That's just what's going to the watershed.
yeah, the watershed's just getting the 60
Yeah, but
for the position to help implement.
so there's still about 107,000 that's not accounted for. All right, well, thank you, Steve, for that portion of it, and thank you, Matt. Do we have any other questions?
I guess one other thing I might mention in terms of revenues and our permits, I think the last time I kind of did a deeper dive into this, we were probably, in terms of our permitting fees, we're probably the second lowest in all 87 counties. So we do have very low permit fees for whether it's a building permit or a conditional use permit or an interim use permit. And I don't think that the fee level has really impacted our ability to run the public hearings and to do our business. I've seen some counties that are well over $1,000 for a conditional use permit, and I don't know. I think it's been good for the county to have the fees where they're at.
I've always suggested that any fees that we should have should be tied to the cost.
Yeah.
To process. We shouldn't be in, as far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't be in the business of making money off of a permit application. But to cover some cost is appropriate, and if we're not covering those costs, then we should be reviewing it. And you know, so I think that's something that you're gonna have to take the lead on to determine, you know, what we're charging versus the cost for you to implement.
Yep, and we do have some information on that I can maybe bring to this board at some time about what the cost it is, the actual cost of a public hearing for the Planning Commission and the Board of Adjustment versus what we charge. And, you know, we're definitely not recouping the cost of a public hearing with our fees, so.
Okay. Well,
But just to maybe go off the permit piece, I appreciate what Commissioner Campbell said in terms of making sure you're just recouping the cost. Obviously, we're not wanting to recoup the cost of permits for what your department's operation is.
No.
But often there have been permits where you've spent a lot of time traveling out to a property, a lot of phone time. I get it. I think for this board's understanding to know, we have to be careful about, because we are a border community, making sure that we're continuing to see healthy growth patterns. If you look at what our permit revenue actuals were for 2019 and 2020, they are increasing and the cost has not increased. So that says to me that there are more businesses and residences going into Clay County, and that's encouraging, particularly looking at May being 23,822. You're on track to exceed what the prior 2 years are. And it signals that there's healthy growth happening. But I agree, it's a delicate balance. You don't want to overcharge on a permit to where people just say, forget it, I'm going to go elsewhere.
Yep.
well, you can, I would imagine you're in the process then of reviewing those fees, and you can certainly come back to us when you have some determination there. All right, anything else on your budget presentation you care to talk about?
No.
Any questions of Matt? Thank you for that. And
Thank you.
The next item is also you, so we'll go right into that, and that's the request to reappoint Ezra Baer to his second 3-year term on the Board of Adjustment. That's attachment G.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Baer has been an active community leader, a township officer, and also a very active Board of Adjustment and Planning Commission member. I think he represents the interests of the county quite well. I would make a motion to reappoint Ezra Baer to a second 3-year term.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Gross. I do want to add too, he's playing a significant role in our comprehensive plan work too. He's at all those meetings, and
Yep.
he was certainly at the meeting that we had up in Hitterdal, and so he's showing a lot of interest, so that's good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 8 has been removed for today, so we'll go to item number 9, an annual budget presentation from Soil and Water Conservation District. We've got District Manager Kevin Kassenberg. Good morning, Kevin.
Morning, everybody. I actually thought I was here to get my $100 to get my revaccination again, but appreciate to be on your schedule today. It's always a pleasure to meet you folks and talk a little bit about our upcoming year for the Clay SWCD. Hard to believe it's that time of the year again. Years go by fast, don't they? One thing about our budget, it does stay fairly consistent from year to year. We have a staff of 5 full-time employees, and our 2022 request reflects a 2.2% increase over last year. And most of those increases are in salary and benefits increases. We do follow the county's cost of living adjustment at 2% this year. And we're looking at a projected health insurance increase, talking to our representative of a 5.9% increase from last year. Not a lot of changes that we envision for the upcoming year. I guess our anticipated workload pretty much stays the same from year to year also. And I think we all agree last year's COVID really threw a wrench into a lot of plans and challenges that we all did work through, but definitely was something I hope we don't have to go back again, although things look like they're ramping up again. But hopefully we can avoid all that. One of our challenges that we had this year was keeping our doors open. We are co-located with the USDA NRCS office and FSA offices, And federal guidelines are restricting the open door as of yet. We're still following their guidelines, and we've trucked and tried and can't get around it. So basically, the front doors have been locked since, a year ago in March, pretty much. We do have our back door open to landowners, so we welcome them and let them know that, they're welcome to come in. But it's been a little challenge to just have our customers know that, we are open to the public. So, but that's something that we'll work through, and we're hoping to get through that fairly soon. We do provide assistance to approximately 130 different landowners every year for our tree program, which has always been something that I think a lot of landowners in the county know us as the tree people. And like I said, we have about 30 varieties of trees that we plant for some landowners, as well as some do hand plant jobs. We work with.
Speaking of that, Kevin, has anybody from solid waste contacted you about trees for the landfill?
Not to me, typically, we've done some things with the landfill a few different times, but I could talk to Craig.
I think there's going to be a request.
Good.
Maybe you can save a few trees for.
Well, you definitely will. We'd be happy to. Yeah, we've worked with the landfill a few different times over the years too.
Well, this is
planting
for
some
kind of a
trees with
different
solid
area.
waste. Okay, yeah, we'll look forward to that.
Some of those cottonwoods.
Good.
Good, yep. I never thought we would be selling cottonwoods, but it's gotten to be one where it doesn't have much disease problems, not a whole lot of insect problems, and it's native to the area. So in my tenure there at the office, I never would have thought we'd have gone to cottonwoods, but we have old-fashioned cottonwoods.
Just don't want to be staining a deck when they're shedding.
True, that is some of the
have
problems,
the
although we do have some
They have
seed,
the cotton
we do have male cottonwoods that are available, so they are hand-selected seedlings that are seedless.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting, I do agree.
So it's
I'm not sure what the process is,
female
Kevin.
cottonwoods that are
we
making
go?
my staining life miserable.
Well, it's the female one, that, I'm not going any further, yes.
Okay. I see.
All right,
We
Kevin.
do,
Say that jokingly.
I know you do, and as well myself. We work with numerous landowners to try to avoid potential wetland impacts, and we do work with Matt's office. Some of the plats that are going out there may involve some wetlands, so our wetland specialist in the office we'll work with landowners to avoid if we can and minimize if we can. And if ultimately avoidance can't be avoided, we can work with, there are some bank acres out there to actually purchase through a wetland bank. So kind of an interesting process. We do have a no-till drill program we continue to offer to approximately 25 landowners every year. And I realize some of this is probably repetitious to Commissioner Campbell, Mojo, and Gross, but for Commissioner Ebbinger and Kaylee, I think it's just something that expose ourselves a little more to you, what we all do at the Clay CD. We work with livestock operations in the county. We have the county feedlot officer program that we work with landowners to make sure that their operation is not polluting waters and basically kind of keeping them within guidelines of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. We administer the county's ag inspector program, so we work with townships to try to keep them abreast of what the Minnesota noxious weed law. This seems to change yearly, but there are a set of weeds that are out there that are basically have to be controlled by Minnesota state law. So we work with landowners and a lot of farmers too. And we do, most of our responsibilities are with county land, ditches, and county property. But like I say, we do have a lot of calls that come in from Commissioner Gross, for one. I know there was a landowner by Glyndon that we, private individuals basically should go through the township individuals, but we work with the town boards as well to try to assist them. We offer a low-interest loan program for things such as septic system upgrades and conservation tillage equipment, primarily for farmers, rural landowners, and ag businesses in the community. We have an urban conservation program, and hopefully you will be able to see some of that on our tour coming up in September, like your Crestwood area site that's south of town here that we've been working with. And as Matt was talking about the buffer law, we continue to try to get 100% compliance with the buffer law. And as was stated, Governor Dayton's law took effect in 2015. Last year's COVID put a little bit of some of the hearings that the Buffalo Red River Watershed District was going through the process with landowners to present a hearing and basically kind of record some of their easements on property that had to have a grass buffer strip along them. Delayed things for about a year, but we are very, very close to getting 100% compliance. We also work with landowners to enrolling in the joint federal and state land retirement program called Conservation Reserve and Enhancement Program, CREP for short. And basically, landowners can enroll land into a permanent easement to idle those acres to plant the grass or trees and get a payment from the federal government as well as the state government. We also promote and educate the aquatic invasive species. We assist landowners and a lot of communities involvement with some of the schools as well as river keepers with a water festival in the fall that we do. Try to basically kind of some billboards, announcements, and promotional items. And you all are aware of the One Watershed, One Plan funding that's been going on in the Wild Rice as well as the Buffalo River Watershed District. Those are things that we are going to be ramping up that are fairly new to us, but it brings a lot more money into the county to basically resolve some of the issues of erosion along our streams, rivers, and cropland in the county. So, questions?
No, I think it's, these programs that are going on, you know, as our water supply is sort of getting diminishing, you know, it really shows how important that buffer program is to keep our water supply clean, you know, and I think it's eventually going to help out the clean, that we have clean water out there flowing in our rivers and stuff.
I hope so too. And you know, it's not a very popular program. It's one that we did not ask for, but it definitely is one that we are working hand in hand with the landowners and the watershed districts as well as the county.
Yeah.
And I do want to thank the county for taking on the role of the enforcement part for that, where you could have opted to allow the state of Minnesota's Board of Water and Soil Resources to be that jurisdictional entity. I think we're way ahead of the game by having a locals to do that. So I want to thank you guys for taking that role on.
And sometimes when you have plenty of everything, you have plenty of water around, you're not concerned about some of that stuff, you know, but I think we've done a good job on it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Several years ago, I know, Kevin, you had talked about the feedlot officer, and several years ago, this is for our new commissioners, we had an awful lot of controversy that would go on in the county over feedlots. And since we've taken that upon ourselves, and instead of allowing the Minnesota Pollution Control to do it, you know, we had the ability to take it on ourselves, and then we contracted with you, and I haven't heard of one issue since. So it's, you know, that's, I don't know if Craig is probably partly the reason.
He's mostly the reason, yeah, and exactly right. I think, you know.
Don't give him too much credit.
Okay, I won't. It's all
That'll
his
get a little
fault, yeah.
big.
Anyway, I agree. You know, some of the programs that we've taken on, some of them are not very popular. You know, over the years, we used to be kind of the white hat people. I think we've gotten great as time goes on, and not just my hair or lack of hair. But definitely, what I see is Craig does a great job being a livestock owner himself, right. And he can speak the lingo. And you know, I think our the whole problem that we had out there, I think, was just a lot of maybe misunderstanding and maybe not the, you know, knowing the whole ins and outs of livestock production. And definitely somebody that can go out there and talk to the landowners, I shouldn't say not talk down to them, but talk, you know, level eye to eye with them. I think that's been a big plus.
Well, and then to be able to, in common language, being able to not necessarily try to be an enforcer, but to suggest ways to stay in compliance.
We would rather work with you rather than
right.
against you. And definitely, I think there's a lot to be said for coming down hard-handedly. That does not work. And so, yeah, I think that's been a good move on the county's part, as well as you know, I think in-house having the right person work with that.
All right. Anything else for Kevin? Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Request for acceptance of 2022 life and long-term disability insurance plans. Good morning, Anna. You're here today covering for Darren, who's
yeah, he's stuck
on
at
another
jury duty, yes. So, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm here this morning to seek acceptance or approval for our 2022 life and long-term disability insurance renewals. Our contracts for those two plans are up at the end of this calendar year. So the insurance committee, along with our benefit consultant, Steve Smith, went out for RFP on those two plans. The RFP was sent to 7 companies, and of those 7 companies, the results that came back, it was the recommendation of NIS, who is our benefit consultant, as well as the insurance committee to stay with our current providers, which it would be Minnesota Life and then Madison National Life. Both of those are administered through Oaks as well. The other companies within the RFP were either non-competitive or couldn't match our current plans. So there was a unanimous vote by the insurance committee on the 27th to keep those plans. There would be an enhanced benefit, lower premiums for our basic life insurance. So right now it is $25,000 for $25,000 for $3 a month. That would be decreasing by 12 cents a month. So, or 12 cents a month per member. So although that seems very little, it is about a savings of $700 per calendar year. Not only does that benefit our employees, but it also benefits soil and water and the HRA because they are on those plans as well. Our life insurance does have a 5-year guarantee, so we would have those rates for 5 years. An enhanced benefit in the sense that right now our maximum election is $300,000. That would be going up to $500,000 with a guaranteed issue of $250,000. So what that means, if somebody were to elect life insurance and they wanted all $500,000, but they weren't approved for that, they would be guaranteed at least $250,000. That is an increase from our current $100,000 maximum guarantee. One additional benefit to our life insurance would be the dependent life. Right now, that is $1.30 per month for $10,000 in coverage, and that covers all covered dependents. So whether you have 1 child or 7, it's the same rate. Parents will now have the option if they want $10,000 or $15,000, and that will cover all of their dependents under the age of 26. So that is the proposed plan for our life insurance. As for LTD, our long-term disability, that is a 3-year rate guarantee, so a little less than our life insurance. And the plan stays the same. The only additional enhancement would be that the premiums would be decreasing. That is an age rate plan, so the younger you are, the cheaper your plan is. So those rates are decreasing just slightly. So I'm open for any questions.
Comments or questions? And again, as Anna said, this was voted unanimously by our insurance committee to recommend approval of these rates. What's the board's wishes?
I guess I should maybe comment that although there is a slight savings, this doesn't necessarily impact our county contribution at this point. Our county contribution is based off our health plan, and we don't know those rates yet. That will be coming in the near future. So although there is a slight savings for the basic life insurance, that is essentially a benefit to the employee.
Well, thank you for going over all of this, Anna. It's a great deal for our employees, and I would move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Cayley, seconded by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion?
I got one other question. The long-term care, which was discontinued a few years back, has there been any looking at going back?
So that was, I guess that went away prior to me starting with the county. So I do know that we still have a few employees that participate in that, but that payment goes directly. HR is kind of removed from that. They pay the company directly. The insurance committee hasn't discussed going back to that, but I mean, we can certainly bring it to them and discuss it. We're always open for ideas, so. I
think part of the reason there is long-term care insurance had gotten to be where it was difficult to get. Okay. A lot of companies were not even offering it anymore. So, but I think you're right. I mean, we can certainly revisit it. I think, Anna, you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe start by talking with our vendors and see.
Yeah, and so we currently have Colonial Life as well, and so they have accident, critical illness, things of that nature. So I could certainly even compare how their critical illness varies from the long-term care. So yeah, we can certainly bring it up and look into it.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great,
Opposed, the
thank
same
you.
sign. Motion carried. All right, thank you,
See
Anna.
you guys in the near future for health.
Yes, we will. Thank you. All right, committee reports. Let's see, who did I start with before? Commissioner Gross, would you care to go first today?
Yeah, last Wednesday, we had the building committee. There we discussed the bonding project, projects that would be eligible for bonding. And a lot of other things to discuss. There's a large tenant moving out of the Family Service Center on October 1st, so there's going to be some moving around over in the 4th floor and the 3rd floor, and we're trying to decipher which people go in what rooms and stuff like that. So Joe was working on that plan, and he was going to bring that bond presentation to the meeting today, but he didn't get all the bids in on the new reconstruction that he's going to do, so I think he's planning for next week on that. Last night, I was at Georgetown for their meeting, city council meeting. The question that came up, I know we got an email saying that there was some funds available, transportation funds available to the small cities. And I don't know, Steve, are you aware, is that going to go out? They don't seem to be aware, as I'm going to these cities, they don't seem to be aware of these funds. Is that going out to them in some way or other?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gross, my understanding through Dave Overbo is that there wasn't it would be coming directly to them. There wasn't a requirement that they submit any paperwork to the state, but I can certainly check on that with Dave.
And that was the question, do they have to apply for it to get it, or what?
No, my understanding through contact with Dave is that the checks had already been sent out at that point, but I will check with him.
Yeah, evidently they haven't heard anything on it yet, so, okay. Yeah, those are my two meetings, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. Last week, I attended the Clay County Comprehensive Plan Open House in Barnesville. I want to extend my appreciation to Matt Jacobson and his staff for setting up a great presentation, as well as Adam Altenberg from MetroCog. Those meetings were lightly attended, but I think we did gain valuable feedback from the folks that did participate, and you can still go online and give any feedback on the Clay County Facebook page. So thank you.
That's it? Okay. Commissioner Ebinger.
Thank you. Last Tuesday, myself and Commissioner Campbell, along with Sheriff Empting and Steve Larson, met with Mayor Shelley Carlson, Moorhead, Mayor James Joy of Holly, Mayor Jason Rick of Barnesville. We met at the Law Enforcement Center to discuss some recurring concerns expressed by by Mayor Rick and by Mayor Joy of differential response from the Red River Dispatch Center to rural calls in their communities. They've expressed these concerns for some time. We did not hear similar concerns from Mayor Carlson. In discussing this, both mayors indicated they spoke with other counties about transferring their dispatch services for their respective fire and police departments to Wilkin County for Barnesville and Becker County for the city of Holly. We again engaged in trying to address some of the concerns they have. It revolves around a limited number of calls, just from what the mayors have told me. We've heard the same concern. I don't think they feel like this has been addressed by the dispatch center. My experience prior to being a commissioner and working as a police chief, I was aware the dispatch center did have a fairly structured response to complaints. It's a little cloudy in our conversations, who made the complaints and what channels they went through. And I think it was, as I've expressed in earlier meetings, it's time that they sit down with dispatch center administration, get a tour of the dispatch, and maybe we can get some communication lines opened up. I've been reluctant to intervene to do this because when I was for the commissioners that aren't familiar with it, the dispatch center is run by a board of authority that consists of the sheriffs, police chiefs, and fire chiefs. From the original agreement, the balance between Minnesota agencies and North Dakota agencies has been maintained, even though North Dakota has grown at a faster rate in Cass County than we have in Clay, although there's growth on both sides. One of the problems that the RRDC is facing right now is we've had such extensive growth that they need a new facility, and we're working with our North Dakota partners and representatives from Moorhead to try to get that figured out, get a price on it, figure out how to pay for it, and build it. We have, in extensive conversations, it's become apparent that Clay County needs its own consul, its own dispatcher. And there's a general consensus with the elected officials who represent the agencies that are signed to this contract that that's where we're going to go, and we'll figure out the price for it. I've been reluctant to set up a meeting with the RRDC and these elected officials because, frankly, when I was on that board of authority, I would have been offended if an elected had gone that far. But there was a consensus at the meeting we had that they wanted that meeting to be set up, and Mayor Carlson's office has arranged it. We're going to have it, I believe, on the 27th to try and address some of the concerns of our rural partners. They are legitimate concerns as expressed. And even if there's a perfectly good explanation, that explanation needs to be provided to these elected officials. And I think it's important that communication between RRDC and the elected officials in both sides of the river be reinforced. I've talked to Mary Philippi, the director of the RRDC, and made her aware what the nature of the concerns are, and hopefully they'll be addressed. Just from my personal viewpoint on this, I am concerned bringing other counties into the dispatch services anywhere here in Clay County, simply because it jeopardizes public safety. When you dial 911 anywhere in Clay County, you're going to go to the Red River Regional Dispatch Center. And they're going to have to transfer your call to another county if that's the case. And it's going to be a process of determining who is in what jurisdiction and what county to transfer them to. I think we can work this out. I appreciate the fact that these elected officials have come forward with their concerns for their communities, and I think it's something that we can come to an agreement on. But the main thing is to open up some communication.
Commissioner Eberg, full disclosure, because Commissioner Gross and I represent two of those communities, the mayors have really brought us into the fold on those concerns, and no, because of quorum issues, we are not part of the dialogue that you and Commissioner Campbell are, because you're on that committee. And I think that from what I've gleaned from all of these different conversations is there has been an issue identified that Clay County needs its own consul. And for whatever reason, that could be response time, that could be volume of calls, whatever that is. I think it's important that all of the people within all of these conversations hear that Clay County has identified that need. And we need to make a significant commitment, whatever that be, to make sure that happens. And I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel and seek out different partnerships with different agencies. I want to make sure that we can continue to serve all of Clay County as best as possible. But I will say, from someone who lives in a rural area, the concerns heard, be it justified or not, are troubling. They're troubling, because if I am in an emergency or come upon an emergency, it doesn't matter what all of the background conversation is. What matters is that we get people there to help immediately. And so we do need to figure it out before there's an issue. And I'm not pointing any fingers anywhere, but I know there are communities that are concerned, and there's residences that are concerned. And so let's figure it out. Let's figure out what the number is. Let's figure out what the staffing shortage is, whatever it is. Let's just figure it out. But we're not going to reinvent the wheel and create a Clay County dispatch.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Commissioner Mojo, and I would like to just weigh in and echo everything you've said there, but I want to also add that, and I know it's difficult, sometimes we can really have involvement with an issue that we're not a member of the committee that's working on it, and it can be frustrating, but I can assure you that Commissioner Ebinger and I have said that to resolve this, and if we'd need a council for rural Clay County. And not only the council and the investment to purchase that council, but the staffing to go along with it. In the same regard, we need to, if we're going to demand that and ask for that, we need to understand what our financial obligation is to it as well. And, and if we're, and that's kind of the direction that Commissioner, well, it's not kind of the direction, it's the direction that Commissioner Ebinger and I have said that we need to go. And we'll continue with that process. I know it's frustrating on the part, the two mayors that Commissioner Ebinger talked about, don't think it's moving fast enough. I think there's a big step. We'll have this meeting on the 27th. And then I think we're going to have the dialogue about a financial commitment to, assure us that we're going to have. And I know I even saw some concern that they're not even sure that if we have a council and we have a staff person that the North Dakota side won't take that staff person away. Well, I mean, it's now we're getting into an area where we're, if we're financially obligating, we need to have the assurance that that staff person will be there when we need it, and that's how we're going to approach it. And so I'll leave it at that. Dave, if you want to add some more, you can.
Thank you. The taxpayers in this region have saved tens of millions of dollars in the 20 years that dispatch center has been combined. The communication between agencies, between fire departments, between police and sheriffs has exponentially increased. It is a good system. I would not want to live in a community where I didn't have a mayor that would come forward and express the concerns that have been brought to us. The communication breakdown, and Commissioner Campbell and I have talked about this with North Dakota partners, is that we have a board of authority that is comprised of practitioners, of leaders of these organizations, but they have no fiduciary authority. So we're looking at trying to get together a group of elected officials who have the authority to come back to their commissions and their councils and say, this is what we've got to pay to keep this operation running at a top-notch level. There's so many different things that concern me on this. I don't want communities that are dialing 911 and being told, hold while I transfer your call in Clay County. I told Mayor Rick when we had our last meeting that the primary concern I have is public safety. I've been an elected guy, got elected once. I was a law enforcement officer for 40 years. And I know where my heart is, and people in this county are going to be protected. And they're going to be protected with the best systems and resources available. And if we have a communication problem, we're going to be grown-ups about this, and we're going to get everybody in a room, and we're going to sit down, and we're going to figure it out. Because there's too much at stake with our citizens of Clay County and Cass County to just let this thing continue to percolate. So I appreciate the assistance that we got from Mayor Carlson and getting everybody together, and we will keep you advised of this. I agree with Commissioner Campbell. It is difficult for us to communicate among each other as commissioners because of the public meeting requirements. And I want to make sure that Commissioner Gross and Commissioner Mojo can tell their constituents that this is being addressed. That we have been working at this from the first of the year, and that the North Dakota partners are cooperating. This is not an adversarial thing at all. They understand our position, and we're going to build an even better system than the one we've had for the last 20 years that has saved, again, taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. And that completes my report, unless there's any more questions or conversation on this.
Any questions? Okay. Well, we'll keep plugging away at it. It's a very important issue in rural Clay County, and we'll stay on it. Commissioner Cayley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tuesday following our board meeting, the insurance committee met, and Anna was just here and discussed the content of that meeting, so I don't need to elaborate on that further. The next day on the 28th, I attended the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County strategic planning session for board members, just looking at what the vision is and making sure we have a strategic plan in place as they look towards getting a new director sometime in the future when Maureen retires, just having that ready for that session. That same day, I also attended the Moorhead Business Association meeting. Brent with Rookie Modern was presenting and continuing on the same conversation from the week before about the creation of affordable housing in our broader community. And his discussion centered on using modern architectural design to build multiple units, and some of he described it as broken teeth or missing teeth areas in our established residential communities where there's an empty lot, maybe where a house has been torn down or never developed on. So putting multiple lots in there to increase the density. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. All right, I had 3 meetings that all fell on the same day last week. The insurance committee meeting on the 27th was my first meeting, and Commissioner Cayley just talked about that. I do have a question, Steve, for you. And in terms of our budget presentations, I've noticed that just about every line item, when it has come to health insurance, has shown a slight negative amount for 2022. Is that because Lori hasn't distributed the increase to each department yet, and it's just because on the levy sheet that you gave us at the end in your report last week, didn't it have a line item for health insurance, projected health insurance increase?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, each year as we start the process, Lori puts in a placeholder. Generally, it's right around $600,000 because that's generally the average over the last 10 to 12 years of what our insurance has increased. And so that varies each year. I think Anna made note. I think we're hoping to get our renewal figure by August 26th of next year, but essentially that's just a placeholder.
By August of this year.
Yeah, August of this year. Sorry.
So when the presentations are coming for us by each department, that health insurance, projected health insurance increase is not incorporated into those budgets.
That's correct. It's a separate line item that runs. For now, yes.
And the final budget would distribute whatever that increase would be to each department.
That's correct.
Right. I just want to in our insurance committee, I did go on record, and I think we're gonna probably have close to a 0% increase this year. I'm just going on record with predicting that coming up. But so, and I think we have another, there's one more issue besides health insurance too that we're gonna be talking about in a recommendation coming forward, but we weren't ready for that yet. I had a diversion authority executive meeting, and we spent an awful lot of time talking again about this alternative dispute resolution board. And between Fargo and Cass County, they're, in terms of the makeup of that, they're really concerned about one entity being involved. And I don't know if there's something that's going to be coming. I don't know if Mary Sherling is the chair of the land management. I don't know if it'll be talked about again and that, but I think there's going to be a proposed change going before the diversion authority board. And that's all I can say on that at this point. And then I had the meeting with the mayors regarding the dispatch that Commissioner Ebinger gave a very good report on. And I also want to say a thank you to Mayor Carlson for, that was the first time she was able to be in attendance. And it's, you know, I think it's important for Clay County to recognize on this dispatch, and I appreciate your talking about the tens of thousands or millions of dollars that have been saved by having a collaborative effort amongst all these. And I think it was an important note to say that Moorhead has zero interest in leaving the regional dispatch center, and that's very significant in terms of our entire county. So hopefully, we'll get those problems resolved. Yeah, Commissioner Ebinger.
If I just jump in, I was remiss, the mayor of Glyndon had been invited.
Yes.
As we had a clerical error where she didn't receive the invitation on her business email. I had a little of that first of the year when I made the transition. We've since corrected that. She's been given the information on the meeting, the 27th, as has the mayor of Dilworth, and all of the police chiefs as well have been invited to that meeting. So people will be able to hear the concerns. Thanks.
All right. Commissioner Mojo.
Thank you. I had called Steve last week to just inquire. I know that we're going through each department's budget and talking about new requests. One thing that I just have a question on, I've been through this several different times in terms of budgets. I know that we don't take action on the new requests that often happen if they're asking for a new employee or whatever. But what I'm a little concerned on is some of these line items for budgets, there's tweaks, right? You know, I understand if it's $50, $100 here or there, but there's been like $20 and $30 and $50,000 adjustments to line items, but they're not in the new request column. And that's the part that I'm struggling with, because I know we scrutinize new requests, and because it's not in that column, then is it just approved anyways? And maybe it's just me not understanding that, but I'm curious as to how we as a board should move forward with that.
If I could, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mojo, I did, after our conversation, I did reach out to Lori Johnson, and as I shared with you, there are, at least in 2 occasions in our budget process that has come before this board where items should have shown an internal service, a position for part of a year, should have been shown as a new request. In talking with Lori Johnson, adjustments to things such as major shifts and expenses, heating, snow removal, those types of things, is generally looked at from the purpose of a look-back period. And so those new requests in those positions have historically been just added, but there are, or like I say, in two occasions, areas that we're going to shift to the new request position, one in highway and one in the sheriff's department.
So then, who's the oversight? Is it the department head does that? Do you approve that?
No, I think,
At what point does the county board weigh in on that?
right, and I know what I will say, and we had discussions on both of those issues as I shared at the time. The adjustment from our meeting the days before board and getting to this before this board weren't changed, and so I'll work on making sure that we do a better job of changing those before they get to you guys.
Thank you. Anything else? Oh, Steve, let's do your report. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the last Tuesday, I did participate in the insurance committee that has been addressed in detail. I also participated in the dispatch meeting discussion. I will also say, as part of the I guess review of the Cass County expansion potential of the Red River Dispatch Center, I did review some RFQs reviews from Cass County this week on potential architectural services as they kind of look forward to kind of get us better information as communities to get to the point where we have to make some decisions on getting that information. On the 28th, I participated in county management and we had COVID updates from Kathy. We talked about the budget 2022, employee appreciation. I think last week we had our resolution, and we had a number of different departments that celebrated within their departments with donuts, dilly bars, pies, and ice cream. Again, we'll be having a appreciation on the county level for the great work that our employees do on the 24th of August. I had a building committee meeting that's been covered by Commissioner Campbell and Commissioner Gross. On the 29th and 30th, I attended the Minnesota Association of County Administrators conference. We participated in some pretty important discussions on emergency management and the role that they play. We saw that certainly their impact during COVID, and talked about some different scenarios. We talked about redistricting with the 2020 census figures coming out in mid to late July September is the time frame that we're getting right now. I've had some lengthy discussions with Lori and Mark Sloan. They have a very good plan in place, ready to deal with that information. Again, redistricting needs to be completed by state statute by January of 2021. And so we'll continue. 2022, sorry. Dates are bad today. And so, again, there's a coordination that takes place not only on the county level, but also with the cities and also our townships. We also talked about COVID operations. Again, what did we learn? Kind of a piggyback off of what we did here at our county that was beneficial. And we also talked about the American Rescue information. Many of the items that are being brought forward by counties deal with broadband, HRA housing funding, the reimbursement on the county level for issues that we've had, infrastructure, and many of the counties have kind of shared, much like us, they're taking a deliberate approach and they're early in the process of their planning. That afternoon, I participated in the opioid settlement webinar put on by AMC. They're working again with the Attorney General as they begin to settle some of the opioid lawsuits. There's going to be funding that's going to come to the state of Minnesota, and AMC is taking an active role in encouraging the Attorney General's office of how those funds should be spent. I've been asked to participate on an opioid committee to discuss that issue here moving forward. On the second, we had facilities and maintenance budget review. Joe was going to be coming before the board next week. I think the big focus is, as he's taken on a new role with George's retirement, we're going to see some adjustments. He's really trying to dial in specific costs to specific buildings, and so you're going to hear from him that there's going to be some shifts, specifically on the maintenance and the custodial crews. That's going to look a little bit different, but addressed just more specifically. Yesterday I worked on preparations. We have our resource recovery groundbreaking this afternoon at 1 p.m. Shuttles are going to begin leaving here from the county at 12:10. There's limited space out there, so we encourage all those attending to come here to the courthouse and jump on one of those shuttles. And I want to thank Shannon Thompson for all the help and great work that she's done in preparing for this. Just wanted to touch base again, the vaccine clinic that we spoke of earlier is again the 5th from noon to 4:30, and during this board meeting we also received another update that there will be one next week on the 12th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Family Service Center. Again, the people can either walk in or schedule something online. And with that, I would end my report.
All right. With that, our next agenda item is a closed session, and that is for an annual evaluation for our county administrator. And when we come out of that closed session, we will immediately adjourn. So
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
we have a motion to go into close. Motion by Commissioner Mojo, second by Commissioner Ebinger. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried. All right, we're back in session, and we've just concluded a closed session dealing with an evaluation of our county administrator, and I would just like to state that based on our conversations, I think it was pretty much unanimous that Steve is doing a great job for us, and we appreciate all that he's done and continues to do for the county. And we think everything that you've done exceeds the expectations of the job or more. And so I think that's, I don't know if any other commissioners care to add anything, but thank you, Steve, for your excellent work. Yes, Commissioner Ebinger.
Just as a new commissioner, I think Commissioner Kaylee and I both have talked about it, but we're very grateful for the orientation, the information packet, everything else you did to try and get us up to speed coming into a new position. And I failed to mention that during your evaluation, but that was well done, and I'm grateful to the department directors that took time to brief us up too, so.
Thank you. Okay, with no other business this morning, we are adjourned.